Hi, I'm Ronald, the rules lawyer, and today I'm going to go over 5 changes that I think will be non-controversial that Wizards of the Coast is not considering in One D&D in 6th edition. And there's been a relatively positive reaction to a recent video from Jeremy Crawford reporting on the survey results, in which he discloses some of the design goals of the new edition. And this is something I've been advocating for, and some other commenters on YouTube have been advocating and demanding that they actually put out some of the reasons why the changes are being proposed in the Unearthed Arcana articles, so that there are criteria by which people can give relevant feedback. And so this is a step forward. But on the other hand, I wouldn't be helping by simply cheerleading and saying, yes, yay, this is happening. This is what they're calling a playtest, and they're designing a new version of the game, and they are soliciting feedback. So offering criticism is important to improve the game, and they're disclosing some design goals is a response, after all, to some people raising hell about it. What I offer criticism about is the fact that overall, this seems to be a conservative revision, and there is some clinging to mechanics in 5e that have been the source of many complaints from players and DMs especially, that so far they do not seem to be considering revising. I would like to be proven wrong to see that they actually are considering these changes, but these are the kinds of things that you would want to do at the start of a playtest and not later on. So before I go to my 5 things, I am Ronald, the rules lawyer. I am a lawyer who has 12 years experience game mastering. My preferred system is Pathfinder 2nd edition, and I'm an advocate demanding that Wizards of the Coast do better. Number 1 is to separate ability score increases, or ASIs, from feats. I would propose that when you get feats after first level, that you also simultaneously get an ability score increase based on your total character level. This has been a popular house rule that many DMs have had over the years, and over at the One D&D subreddit, I put up a survey asking that community what they thought, and there was a pretty strong majority wanting this change. But the Unearthed Arcana articles still have ability score increases competing with feats. All of the level 4 feats include +1 to an ability score, and if you want to get +2 to an ability score, there's a separate feat for that called ability score improvement. There are several issues with this design. First, it makes the ability score improvement very unappealing compared to getting +1 to an ability score in addition to a feat. This contributes to the problem that Jeremy Crawford has recognized in the recent video, that you don't want some things to be automatically a pick, or in this case, a non-pick. It also fosters an optimization minigame where at level 1, you want to plan ahead for your level 4 feats and give yourself an odd number in that ability score. It also writes off a number of level 4 feats from characters who would not benefit necessarily from that +1 ability score, narrowing the field of choices. What I can gather the reason for them competing with each other is to give a simpler, more straightforward option to new players who don't want to engage with reading the list of feats. What you should do is simply do what the designers are already doing with regard to spells. In the face of a list of choices, just give new players some recommendations of what they should pick. That would remove the problem. Number 2 is unique class spells. In the Unearthed Arcana articles, there are no unique spells for clerics or for bards. In previous editions of D&D, there would be unique spells that clerics or bards could take. Bards would have special songs that they could take that were very flavorful. Based off this idea, you can also have unique spells for clerics based off of their deity or domain, but we do not see that so far. This is closing off a huge design space that would make characters feel more flavorful and more unique from each other. Jeremy Crawford says one design goal is to make some level dips from multiclassing less appealing. And one way to address that is to make focusing on a single class more appealing. And unique spells can be limited to those who invest enough levels in Bard or Cleric. Because what we have right now makes the characters feel a little too samey, a little too much like each other. And if your character concept that involves being a Bard involves and requires taking levels in another class in order to express your concept, then I think there's something wrong there. Number 3 is to remove the instant death rule. On page 197 of the player's handbook, there is a rule saying that your character dies if it receives enough damage and a single source of damage that puts you at negative maximum hit points. So if your maximum hit points is 7 and something brings you down to -7, you instantly die. Jeremy Crawford, in justifying the first Unripped Arcana article's change to critical hits, which removed critical hits from monsters, said that this was a way to protect low-level characters from being instantly killed. This design goal was hidden to the majority of people who responded to the survey, and in the recent survey feedback, he happily said that because of the low survey support for the change to critical hits, that it was eliminated from the game. But the design goal, I'm assuming, is not eliminated. Or maybe it is. It speaks to the problem of how they're doing this survey. But all that aside, if you're trying to get at protecting low-level characters, that's not the only solution. One obvious way is to remove this rule. And while we're at it, there are a number of other complaints that have accumulated over the years about the death and dying system, including what many community members call pop-up healing, where people are brought up and down in combat with the healing word spell with little sense of danger. And the sense of instant death combined with that sense of it's too hard to die in the system, those are two very schizophrenic opposite experiences. And there's very little opportunity for DMs to dial the game to a desired level of peril. And so there should be some revisiting of the death and dying system. And better to do that now at the beginning of the playtest than later, because how can we assess future classes, class features, spells, including healing spells, and monsters in the absence of that system to test? Number 4, remove binary proficiency and non-proficiency for saving throws. Right now, one of the selling points of 5th edition is bounded accuracy. This idea that the D20 roll stays relevant throughout all 20 levels, but actual experience shows that not really to be true. Players with some optimization sense can often put their DCs really high or their attack bonuses so that they can suffer that -5 penalty to their attacks to get the +10 damage, and the monsters are still going to get hit. There are other areas in the game where the math is not as balanced as bounded accuracy would have you believe. That's a whole other problem, however. And all I'm talking about here is a simple fix, which is to make it so that not being proficient in something doesn't completely gimp you in your saving throw. Let's give everyone basically a version of the Bard ability Jack of all trades for all saving throws in which you're not proficient. You get 1/2 your proficiency bonus for your saving throws. Because right now, PCs who get to the mid and higher levels have those 4 very weak saves that are a huge problem. And often they feel like they should take the resilient feat to patch up those holes in their defenses, which doesn't feel very fun and feels like a tax. On the side of monsters, you have high-level monsters that should be formidable and scary, but have a very vulnerable, at least one very vulnerable saving throw that rewards knowing the meta of that, how to defeat that monster. So if you're facing a CR30 Tarask, cast Web or the Vard's Black Tentacles, and you can basically shut it down for at least 1 round. For monsters, the specific solution will need some playtesting, what number they need for those saves, perhaps something based on their CR rating. And that's one of the things the playtest should be for. Number 5 is to give all classes capstones that are worth getting. The capstones from 5e were moved down from 20th level to 18th level and have been replaced with epic boons. And they are lame. Pretty much a lot of them are tepid, not exciting. Definitely not something you would want to commit all 20 of your levels, assuming your campaign goes up to 20th level 4, when you could instead take 2 levels of another class, which would give you much more utility. A lot of the epic boons are also very generic, and I think that they should be choices that are unique to your class. something very flavorful and something that synergizes with your class's abilities. This would allow for more design space to make some very powerful game-changing effects that, because they're isolated to one class, you don't have to worry about unintended, overpowered interactions with other classes. So I'm just shooting these out there. They should be subjected to playtesting, but what if a rogue could get the ability to be undetectable for a whole combat? Or a monk having the ability to be impossible to shut down and incapacitate for that combat. So those are my 5 things. If you like what I have to say, like and subscribe, and also check out the rest of my Lawyer's Critique series, where I've been doing a deep dive criticizing the process of developing 6th edition and calling on WOTC to do better. Also, if you liked these 5 suggestions, I recommend checking out my latest Lawyer's Critique video asking whether D&D should use Pathfinder 2nd Edition's 3-action economy. My answer to that question is a qualified no, and I actually propose a different system that I think would be well received among current D&D players. It was well received in the comments and would also not force a redesign of many monsters and characters in the system. That's it. I am Ronald, the Rules Lawyer. Check out my Discord community as well if you want to join like-minded people, and also support my Patreon. My income comes from this channel, the Patreon, and running RPGs. So that's it. I'll see you next time.